Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to September 1st, 2022.
It's not really September, is it?
It's September. Summertime is over. It is back to work, back to school, and back to conferences. That's what I think, but we'll see how it goes. So gonna do some housekeeping and make sure everybody's on the same page. MSPinitiative.com. This and every other session that we've ever done since March of 2020. You can all remember that, even though you've tried to erase it from your mind, is on there under sessions and podcasts and video format. So feel free to listen while you drive. We'll be announcing some giveaways right between now and the end of the year. So stay tuned. It'll be loud and they'll be cool. So don't go too far. We have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 community block parties. 1 right around the corner in 2 weeks at DattoCon 2022. In Washington, D.C. So if you're in the Mid-Atlantic area or Northeast and care to drive down or drive up or drive over, you can still come to the party. If you're coming to the conference, I'm going to be busing you over to this party at Nationals Park. That's right. We didn't rent out a bar. We didn't rent out a venue across the street. We rented an entire baseball stadium. I'd say that's a first, at least for us. So that's why I'm wearing my Phillies gear, because even though we're doing this in DC, I can't go and break the the 4-for-4 sports bond here in Philadelphia. And then our second party is going to be on a boat. Everybody loves water, right? It's going to be around the Taylor Business Group Big Conference. So if you just go big, I always don't spell this right. Big. There we go. Google Big Taylor Business Group. It's going to pull up the conference information there. Here's another event happening in Fort Lauderdale on the beach at the Diplomat in Fort Lauderdale. This was the scene and location of the very last Autotask Community Live back in 2017 before Autotask and Datto merged. So we'll be doing if you're going to the conference, then you're more than welcome to join us. We'll be doing a boat party, not block party, but close enough, right here on the night that opens up the conference. And we're excited to do that again because we're recreating a little jam from the past. And then lastly, we'll be doing our closing event of the year, block parties wise, in Orlando on International Drive at Icon Park. We're flying in the All-American Rejects. That's right. You remember that band? It was on the radio. It's going, and I bet you if still sometimes comes on the radio, especially if you're listening to satellite radio like I do, bringing in the All-American Rejects for a private concert at Icon Park. That's gonna close out our year at the for MSP Initiative and the block parties. But hold on, I still got more.
There's more.
We still have 3. That's right, not 1, not 2, but 3 more Channel Strong tours. That's when we get into a band tour bus and go into people's backyards and just ask you to come out and talk shop, hang out, learn a few things, grab a beer, and enjoy the weather, right? Because it's that time of year. So we have 3 more of these coming up. If you are at the end of September and almost the end of October and right at the tail end of November going into December, you see we have these last 3 weeks of Channel Strong tour. So if you're an MSP, you're in one of these areas, register, come on out, go to channelstrongtour.com. We'd love to see you. We see some surprise guests, I think. But it's always a good time and always interesting to hear what people are doing. Now that all of that's been announced and it's out there and everybody knows what's going on, and why I'm wearing my Eagles gear, my Phillies gear. It's also an Eagles country over here, and NFL season's right around the corner. I'd like to welcome Frank onto today's show as our kind of guest speaker. And Frank is from a company called Nodeware, but I'm not going to take his podium. I'm going to talk to Frank and ask him a little bit about his journey through technology land first. We're going to learn a little bit about him, and then we'll see where we go.
Okay.
How are you, Frank?
I'm good, George. Thanks very much, and thanks for including me on the session today. I'm excited to spout my wisdom, right? As you can tell by, I think your head is a little bit more shaving head. Mine's just because, I'm old.
True story. I had an afro, and then I went from afro to shaving my head. So
wow, nobody recognized you. Who that is?
Yeah. People are like, do I know who you are? I'm like, yeah, I think you do. But yeah, so I do definitely shave. But, it's a good style, man. I like it. I think it works for a lot of people.
Yeah. Well, so my journey to here has been kind of a long one, but all around technology for the most part over the last close to 40 years post college. God, yeah, I am old. It is September, and I am old. I turn another year old this month. So,
well, happy birthday.
Yeah, a little early, but that's okay. Thank you. So I've worked in and around technology companies, and from working in San Francisco with consulting companies, and then I worked with Apple Computer back in the late '80s, early '90s, and then I was
that must have been fun.
Oh yeah, it was the non-jobs years, so it was in between Jobs's presence there, but it was a good time until it wasn't, and then they've had quite a resurgence since then. So I worked at Apple, then I worked a bunch of years at Intel. It started in Santa Clara, and then moved up here. I'm in Portland, Oregon now, and been up here for 27 years. But worked at Intel for about 18 years. Did a couple of years at Cenex. And then been back kind of working various companies around the industry the last 6 years with different consulting jobs, and just kind of helping channel development, channel access, learning, helping startup companies as well as established companies get their channel going, right? Just from either partner recruitment or program development, or hey, we got this great product, everybody should want it, right? Well, yes, but but kind of can take months and years to get established. So, been involved in a lot of different areas, and primarily hardware over the years, but now with my logo here, you can see it. Nodeware is actually the product name. The company is IGI Cyber Labs, but that's just a formality. Nodeware really is the product, and it's a vulnerability management scanning. It's a continuous running, normal business hours, not have to schedule. Every asset on a network can be tracked, including agents or devices that are off network, websites, et cetera, et cetera. So we can go into the background of that a little bit more, but it's a really strong MSP initiative. So I'd like to talk a little bit more about what we're doing and how we're helping the MSP in general. But
okay,
that's my quick background.
So now that we understand how you got here, and by the way, a lot of stops along the way, but the technology industry is so big, right? I feel like they call it MSP land, like the sandbox, right? It's like over here to the side, and then you got the big guys, right? You ever watch that show on HBO, Silicon Valley, right? Where they like I just find it funny because most of that stuff probably does happen in the day to day, right? So obviously, Intel, you're at Apple for a while, you're at Cenex, so you've seen a kind of large view of how this bubble gets sliced up, and so why Nodeware, right? You've gone to a lot of places. What excited you about this company?
It was a good question in that it was kind of an opportunity that was brought to me by and actually another ex-Intel colleague, and sort of, said, hey, you should talk to these guys. And so the interesting piece of it is that, cybersecurity in general, right, is a hot and interesting target, right? And, you can't go to a MSP show today without 90% plus of the vendors talking security, right, providing some piece of the mix. So it's a very crowded field, obviously. The nice thing about Nodeware is that it's a specific tool doing a specific thing very well, right? We're not sort of adding on, extra tools, extra blades in the Swiss Army knife, right? It's very focused. And the philosophy is really about enabling an MSP to use it as its own entity within their cyber security stack. But we're also focused on integrations and sort of, enabling others that have those other tools sort of use our data, right? Because what we've gotten patented actually, which is interesting, right, is the way that we scan the networks and with the continuous piece of it, right? So we literally every minute the network is being scanned for assets, and so you can tell whether one's online or not. If a new one comes on that you're not aware of, you can alert. And every day, every asset is being scanned for its latest vulnerabilities. You don't have to schedule, you don't have to think about it. If you need to go check, you can go check, and you have instant information and no data more than 24 hours old.
So would you categorize this as like a XDR or a SOC SIEM solution, or like, do you fit one of these?
No, we kind of we supply really into all of those pieces,
Okay.
right? So a SIM is kind of a backward looking. We really kind of, for the most part, provide a proactive look at the risk of an environment, right? So if you know a new vulnerability comes in at 2:00 in the afternoon, let's say, right? Microsoft releases something, or Adobe, or Ubuntu, whoever, right? Somebody, Cisco. I mean, anybody can produce a CVE or some other warning about something that's going on. The hackers have that information in 15 minutes. They're already trying to exploit it, right? So if you're waiting once a month, once a week to see if any of your devices have that vulnerability, you could be out of luck, right? You could be hit before you even know it. So what our approach is because we're scanning continuously, and we match all the data that's out there from all the knowledge bases and all the databases of the vulnerabilities. We look at, we match it up to a device. And so you can get an alert. If you get a new diverse device that's on the network that's affected by this new vulnerability found, you're going to get a notice within, a couple hours to a maximum a day. So you can take advantage, get ahead of the curve right before you get attacked. So
does this require an agent? Is there a box that you plug in somewhere?
No, so it's a combination. So we have network sensors that can go onto the network and capture every IP address on the network, from cameras to VoIP phones to printers, servers, firewalls, et cetera. If it's got an IP address, we're going to find it and be able to fingerprint it and let you know, and scan it to know whether we see any vulnerabilities specifically on that individual device. So that's for physically on the network, right? And then we have agents that can go onto PCs and Macs and some Linux endpoints. So any device that's working remote, obviously that's a big deal, is also included in the system. So a company, an MSP that's managing an environment for a client, whether they're 20 or 200 or 2,000 employees, every one of those 2x to 3x assets, right, per employee is typically what's out there when you add up everything on the network. So all of those are collected and put into one platform for the MSP to look at and go quickly glance and see see what where the risks are. We score it from 0 to 999, and the higher the better. The higher the number is, the lower the risk is. So it's again, we're sensors, agents, and then also external. So if one of your clients has an e-commerce site, or just their outward facing website that's connected in the back to a bunch of your other data, you want to make sure that front edge is protected and not vulnerable as well. So that gets included into the mix. So with one panel of view, the MSP can see everything that's relative to their customer.
So there's companies out there that say they do penetration testing. Does this qualify as that too?
No, this is really a complement to penetration testing. And actually this product, the company IGI more broadly, which is IGI, the IGI broader company is involved in the penetration test, in the incident response, and in virtual CISOs, sort of team as a service when you don't, right? So we have technical resource. So this product, Nodeware, was developed out of them needing an ongoing, if you call it a penetration test light, right? You're not doing the attack on a system or on a network like a penetration test, right? You're trying to get into it, right, and figure out, find out where the gaps are. Whereas the ongoing vulnerability scanning is, again, ongoing, right? It's kind of the lighter version, if you will, of a penetration test. So it's definitely a complement. You can do a hard penetration test once a quarter, or there's a service that you can get it sort of as an ongoing, kind of a monthly test. But that's at one point in time, right? There's things that happen in the meantime. So the best approach is really to do both.
Interesting. And so basically you're this, a complementary service on one part, but then ultimately this is also like, instead of putting your own, kind of XDR type solution, right, in order to like monitor the network, this is going to do that for you. And it's also going to, kind of give you alerts of vulnerabilities based on what they find.
Yeah.
There's an agent and a box that work in conjunction with each other.
Yeah. Right. I mean, ultimately we are, an inventory tool, right? We're an inventory asset management tool to understand what you got, right? Because you can't expand your cybersecurity services unless you know exactly what you've got. So we can help identify that. We have a lot of MSPs that, have been doing haven't really gotten into the cyber space yet, or cyber hygiene type of thing. And this is absolutely the perfect first step, right? One, you can identify all the assets and fingerprint and sort of know where things are at. And if you're doing a new proposal, you know how many to base your proposal on, right? You don't want to be undercounting what you've got. But again, to get the advice, and you might find some customers or prospects that you see what they've got on their network. You can run a free trial with the product. You could say, "Oh my God, I'm going to fire you before I even hired you." They might say, "I don't want to mess with that environment because it's just too ugly." But at a minimum, at a base level, though, they can get that identification of the network, get a clear view, do their proper proposal, and start with this hygiene, right? Protecting, identifying things that need to be done first, right? And what needs to be done second. Prioritize the workflow, or add additional SOWs on top of, your MRR. So there's different ways to utilize the tool, and there are other tools out there that we're finding a lot of MSPs and other bigger enterprise accounts are been using, again, Qualys or Tenable or some of these other products out there, and they're so heavy on the network. And again, that was really the design requirement when this was developed, was we don't want to wait once a week, once a month at the middle of the night to run a scan. That doesn't do anybody any good. I mean, it does in a certain way, but it's delayed information and short of the true viewpoint of the whole network. So so that's our goal, our focus. As I mentioned, we've done a lot of work and continuing to. Actually, we're going to have a announcement tomorrow with some of our integration work, but we've already done an announcement, like with Gradient MSP. We're integrated into their synthesized platform. We're Security Studio, Threat Advice, and we've got some other plays coming up that are pretty exciting. And again, because we're focused on what we do, the MSPs will now have different options of how they use us, right? Use us straight away or within other tools that they can deliver.
Interesting. So I assume that this is designed for the MSP world, right? So it's probably multi-tenanted, I assume.
Absolutely.
And how does the math work, right? Is it per location, per customer, per device?
Yeah, so we license to the MSP in blocks of 50 assets. So, if you've got 10 customers and, total of 500, assets that you're managing, then you would buy 10 blocks, from TD Synnex, so our current distributor. But we, so that's the sensors and the agents are no cost, so you can deploy as many of those as you want. We don't charge that way. But the way we price it is that it's kind of pay as you go, and as you hit pricing tiers, and the price per asset drops, and it's flexible up and down. So we didn't want to do an all you can eat because it's sort of, I don't know, it's hard to track it, hard to manage it in for both us and the MSPs in terms of per customer charge. It's like, and that's where we sort of worked with Gradient and their integration, where again, those 10 customers, and one's using 22, another's using 44, another's using 66. Those numbers go into the Gradient tool, so the MSP can really clarify what their cost is, what their cost is per customer, right, of our product as well as others.
Okay, so it's like there's a multi-use to it, right? I mean, it almost works as like partial RMM discovery at style tool, and then like this vulnerability, kind of update, kind of, hey, here's what we see, here's what you need to know, angle, and then penetration testing light, right? So like you kind of package all of that together, and it's like maybe like security kind of approach to, hey, this is what you have, this is what we're looking at, here's what we're managing, and it could be used in a prospective way, and it can be used in an ongoing way.
Yeah, we've got some MSPs that have a, if you will, a 10-point security stack, right? And this is one of their points, right? So, and they don't sell that whole stack without, they don't sell piecemeal, right? It's an all or nothing kind of package. And other folks, have 3 things they do, and this is the 4th that's an option. So it's a flexible enough tool that way that they can, build it as they need it.
No, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
Got a couple guys that jumped onto the call today. Brian,
Yeah.
Bruce, Darren, welcome. How's everyone doing today? Darren, I grabbed the other day on Tuesday, I got handed a box of Popeyes instead of Chick-fil-A. I kind of like raised my eyebrow. I said, well, I got to do what I got to do. And then today with Chick-fil-A, we fixed that.
Delicious. I just finished my Chick-fil-A breakfast. Actually, I literally, I got enough to last for a while. So I got,
I know. Yeah. You always like to buy enough for a couple of days.
I usually buy enough for 2 days, just in case. But then I finished it in 1 day. So, anyway.
Well, so Darren, you must be on the West Coast if you're still thinking and talking breakfast.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. At the moment, I am, yes. It's Chick-fil-A is good any time of the day, but yes, their breakfast is particularly underappreciated, I will say.
The biscuits are hard to beat.
I feel like Chick-fil-A is experimenting with different things in different areas. Darren, you're not one of the areas where they're doing the actual chicken wings now, are you?
No, not. That would be interesting. But how can you really beat? You can't really beat those nuggets. I'm sorry, the wing is not going to ever be as satisfying. But
but apparently it's going well. They might be getting close to going the whole way every location.
Yeah. Nothing like those nuggets down in Orlando. That was the best.
You say that it was completely different, man.
They were different. I don't know why. Anyway.
All right. Okay.
Was that your main food at one of the last shindigs?
No.
Not quite, but
I feel like we just eat Chick-fil-A every day, and so it's just an actual. So Darren has like I don't know about double the points, but like 40%, maybe 35% more points than I do, and then we ran into another guy, JP, out of Fort Worth, who has even like another 40,000 more than Darren does. So I was like, oh, we're not the only ones out there eating chicken.
Get them. I'm at 107 now. I'm headed towards 150 by the end of the quarter.
All right,
wow.
I love how we're projecting Chick-fil-A points instead.
It's a backup plan. If I can have one sandwich every other day for a year, if it came down to, I'd be okay.
Yeah, I got you. Now you're all booked up. We're gonna see Dado, yeah.
Dado, yeah. I just got a email literally that so do you want to bring somebody else on your staff? I said, no, I don't think so. But
hey, they're trying to make sure people show up, man.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So you came in a little bit late, Darren. We're talking to Frank here from Nodeware. Have you ever heard of Nodeware before?
I have heard of them, and I digress. I have to grab this. I'll be back.
Okay, you'll come back. That's all right. We'll
Well, it's good. It's good you've heard of us.
That's good. Well, listen, I'm sure you're out there doing events somewhere.
Yeah, no, we've been doing. We did a number of the ASCII events early this year. We've done Channel Pro last month now in Charlotte, and we'll be next week in Dulles, Virginia. And then I'll be one of our integration partners that we talked about on the integration side is Talk Soder. They've integrated in Nodeware into they're always on vulnerability scanner is actually Nodeware's product. So we're partnering with them at the event. So I'll be there, but without a booth. So if anybody listening is going to be at DattoCon, love to see you and talk to you. And hear,
it's like we went 2 years without a DattoCon, so like everybody's kind of itching. But then of course there's the big. What is Big Fred gonna say? Now that this Datto Kasei merger has come through. So
that'll be a well attended general session, I'm sure.
Oh, listen, I know that they announced it at the Kasei's native conference in Vegas.
Right.
But I think now that this is the actual data event, which I believe they also took Glue X, or used to be the IT Glue conference, and kind of put it together here.
Oh, have they combined that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Glue, I think Glue X was scheduled for October in Miami, and they've now connected. It's all wrapped up now into DataCon. So
Okay.
putting all the chips into the middle,
Yeah. Yeah.
So should be very intriguing.
Yeah. Hey, George, one of the other things I just was thinking about that is interesting in the mix here that I wanted to call out is that as an MSP dealing with either cyber insurance, right, for their customers or themselves, for anybody that's working on HIPAA and any other compliance and auditing
I mean, there's
types
a
of
lot
customers,
of that.
right? That all kind of wraps around back to what we provide in terms of the continuous scanning. Right. One of the requirements, if anybody's dealing with car dealerships today, there's a new compliance for anybody actually dealing with home loans or consumer loans is the new FTC requirement as part of the GLBA. December 9th, if a dealer doesn't have these, MFA, continuous scanning, and a number of other technical requirements as well as other compliance requirements, they're subject to $10,000 per instance fines.
Whoa. Rewind.
Yeah.
So this is a new law that took place when?
Well, it takes effect December 9th is the last day that the car dealerships have to be in compliance.
And this is a federal law. So across the board. So basically to do anything with loans, right? Loan processing, loan applications.
Our RV dealers, boat dealers, car dealers is kind of the big hit. They've been subject to this GLBA for a while, right? And it's kind of the basic requirements. The new FTC requirements is regarding, if you think about it, right, at a car dealership, how much information they're gathering from you.
They have it all. They have your Social Security, they
back and forth, everything, right? And so what they're protecting is you and I, right? With this new requirement, but from a business opportunity, the car dealerships need to, put it bluntly, they need to spend some money, right? I mean, they are not anywhere close to this requirements because they're a low margin business for the most part, right? Except when you get to the service base, but that's a different story. But they are going to be stringently watched and followed for this rule. So we're working with some compliance groups. Is Comply Auto, and there's a number of them that are focused on the overall compliance requirements for dealerships, and they're looking for MSPs to be able to deliver some of the additional technology pieces like Nodeware that provides the vulnerability, the MFA elements that need to be added. Funny.
I was just talking to a small local financial planning firm, right? They also do like stock investing recommendations and that kind of stuff. So they kind of have, a little bit of everything going on there on the finance side, right? So you can do your investing there. They can make recommendations, portfolio, whatever. And so they work with, obviously larger financial trading platforms, right? Like Charles Schwab and those kind of guys, right? And so like they have this documentation from the larger company, saying, hey, here's your cybersecurity, requirements effectively, right? Like, you have to be able to archive client communication and actually part of that document actually goes through continuous scanning and being able to actually prove that you've been doing it the whole time so that you didn't just wait for a problem to happen. You've actually had it's like the alarm on your house, right? You had it so that when the break-in happened, you're kind of ahead of it.
Yeah,
so
you need to prove back to the insurance company or to whoever the auditors that you were doing this. And that's one of the things we provide in with our reports, right? So you can schedule a report just says every day I want this whole network report. You're never going to read every one of them, but you've got them, right? You archive them. Or you can, you're going into customer meeting or an audit in the afternoon, you can hit report and, within a minute, you've got an updated report, either an executive summary level or a full meal deal. But that's,
so that's kind of big because if it almost seems like, obviously this is very focused at financial and the car dealerships, but I'm going to go out on a limb to say that, the insurance carriers have already said, if you're not doing MFA, some have just said, you're going to discontinue coverage, right? Like, we're just not going to, we're going to take you. And now, like, I feel like this could be something, it would be huge if they do it. But if they go down the line of, hey, you have to have some sort of continuous model, that flips the script quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and again, the difference, like the requirements before might have been, you need to have an annual penetration test or a checklist of a vulnerability management scanner or an certain different pieces. But the once a month, once a year just isn't, it's just, we all know, right? There's too many things going on, too many new environments, new actors, just trying everything they can. So that kind of compliance is an area that, again, we provide, again, we're a focus tool. We don't provide everything in there, but we are working with a number of these compliance companies that if people are interested, you'll provide my contact information. They can let us know and we can hook you up with some of these companies because they're looking, the compliance companies don't know technology, right? They maybe know a basic piece or a couple things, but they don't know how necessarily to implement an MFA or to put in Nodeware or some of the other pieces. So, it's a big opportunity. If you've got a car dealership in your customer base, you need to be, talking to them right away about what they're doing for the FTC requirements of the LBA.
Well, that's awesome. That I had heard something about this and it never had it, like, I never went back to figure out what the deal was. Now we know, right? Like, this thing's coming down to, it's pretty good.
It's 3 months away, so it's
unless you're Tesla, unless you're Tesla, when you just sell your cars to direct, right? So
yeah, but their local locations still need it, but that's
true. That's true. That's true. That's good. That's good information. And then I wonder, because the bar is kind of low for everyone else, right? There's other regulated industries, HIPAA is one, medical. And there's, SOX and all the, there's a bunch of different, like, depending on industry, there's CMMC for the government contractor, so on and so forth. Right. I wonder if, because we've heard now several times where people have they didn't just fill out the one page and then just waited for the premium. They actually either talked to the actual bean counter behind the agent, or they sent in additional documentation attached to their questionnaire, or they actually got on the phone. I had one company, Red Key Solutions, this is a genius idea. They called in and said, I want to know what happens if I report an incident. So they connected him to the incident response people, who then connected, basically started to figure out who are the people that the insurance company sends in after something happens, right? And start realizing what they look for, how they work. They started working backwards from that whole process, and then change their entire, kind of procedure and process around how that works. And I was like, wow, you go to, now you go to redo the next year's premium, and now you're already ahead of the game, big. So
and those requirements, right, are fairly well, identified out if you can ask for it. I mean, if one of your customers is going to just apply for insurance, right, they're going to get turned away pretty quickly because they're not prepared for the data that needs to be done. But so you got to get ahead of that. Interestingly, sort of you're sort of being smart about an incident, like just say an incident response plan, right? I was listening to Dave Sobel's MSP Radio the other day, and he had a bonus issue with an FBI agent that was talking about what happens. What should be if your customer is, attacked, you get a call at 3 a.m. and, hey, what do I do? Who do you call? When do you call the FBI? And you call them as soon as you can, right? I mean, some internal legal counsels don't want you to call because then it sort of becomes public information. But anyway, there's a plan there. If you're not familiar with your FBI authorities in your local markets, make an appointment, go in and talk to them, at least understand what resources they have and what should be a process. But the really interesting piece of the discussion that I thought would be relevant here is that, a lot of companies, well, I don't know about the percentage, but let's just say a good number of MSPs have an incident response plan for their customers. Maybe the customer end user does themselves, but have they ever really sort of implemented it, right? Or done a test run, or, okay, so what if this, what is the sequence of events? But the incident response plans are going to probably, if they're not already, they're probably going to be a requirement for this insurance checklist, right? So, be getting smart about it, because it's I was on something last week with an insurance company, and I kind of said bluntly, I said, insurance companies, yeah, they like your premiums, but they don't like to pay out, things, but they'll spin it their own way. But as a consumer, that's kind of the way you feel, right? And so but you look at their conditions for payouts, right? And what are the clauses that exempt them from having to pay out? And so those are the things you need to pay attention to, as you're working with your end users on, hey, we're preparing for this. These are the things that we need to do now, and these are the things we need to do ongoing. And the insurance companies, the first things they're going to look for is the things that give them exemptions. So,
I would think it's your worst nightmare when you have an incident, you think you're covered, your insurance policies like that safety net, and some guy comes through with a copy of the questionnaire that you filled out and was like, yeah, you're not going to be covered for this incident. And you're like, oh,
yeah.
I mean, that's
not. Yeah, and there's two plays of not covered, right? There's the end users coverage, and then there's the MSP's coverage, right? And what they doing. So, like Threat Advice, one of our integration partners they're doing a breach prevention platform, right? That is kind of enabling sort of identification and managing on the front end, which uses our stuff, and then they have some training, but then they also have some liability insurance through Cysurance that enables the MSP to be covered for their out-of-pocket play, right? And their coverage. And again, I'm probably misspeaking a little bit, but it's something worth looking into. And one of our announcements that I mentioned coming tomorrow will cover some of that insurance play.
Yep. No, that's awesome. And we've seen Threat Advice out in the channel. Sorry, I forgot to put my phone on mute. So yeah, no, I mean, listen, it's a constantly growing situation, right? I mean, and like, absolutely. It's interesting how many people you're already working with, right? That are a little bit channel focused, which is great, because it's a small sandbox, and like, obviously everyone's trying to understand what works and what doesn't, and at what cost. And, it's a little bit, let me throw this one at you. There's this, MSP versus MSSP. Like, I know this is just marketing terms, because the word MSP is a marketing term by itself, but it's a little bit worrisome, right? Because we've heard in the past where people have said, well, hey, I'm not really an MSSP, right? I don't have threat hunters, and I don't have my 24/7 guys with 5 screens trying to look at every, anonymous log entry or whatever, right? Like, I'm an MSP, I'm security focused. I want to make sure my customers are covered. So like, there's this kind of line in the sand, right? Because if you over market what you're trying to sell, or if you misposition what the actual conversation is, you kind of open yourself up to liability as a service provider. Like, what's your opinion on that story?
Yeah, no, you're right. And it is a fine line there that, again, people are calling themselves adding the S just because, they've sold a security product before. It's a fine line. We kind of look at the adding the S is almost sort of a real, it's it's sort of the SOC level, right? It's sort of adding other operational pieces that are needed. So, again, I'm not an expert on the distinction. I just know that people are, adding Nodeware to an MSP business does not make you an MSSP. Be honest, right? It's kind of on the path, but there are other companies like SOCSoder and other SOCs that are out there that are more providing that full level of managed security. Enabling, if you're an MSP, you don't need to be all that expert yourself, right? There are tools there that you can utilize and that complement what you're already doing. And they have the call centers, they have the 24-hour knocks and SOCs, and be able to support you down the line. So I think everybody kind of needs to be realistic about what their business is, and we're trying to be realistic in what we're providing, and right, we don't want to be the be all end all tool, right? But we want to enable tools that are out there that an MSP can kind of not have to choose, between 20 different pieces, right? And try to make up their mind, right? We want to, fit where people are buying, and MSPs have, as we said before, got a lot of choice, right?
100%. A lot of choice, but a lot of vendors to manage too. And I think that's one of the, chronic problems actually in the sandbox is it's like 40 vendors, 50 vendors, and like, do you actually have time to actually stay up with all of the, it's almost as bad as the end user, like technology is, kind of changing so quickly, the end user doesn't have time. I mean, even the internal IT guy doesn't have time to stay up on it, right? Like on the MSP side, there's a lot of vendors that you're using, right? And like, how frequently are you actually up to date on what's going on until, there's a problem? So there's definitely that problem there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's go through. I'm sure Darren will come back when he's done, taking whatever phone call he got and eat some more chicken there. But let's go through some current events as I like to pop in and see what's going on. So this was the one that came out overnight. So if you're a ConnectWise shop and you're using ConnectWise Manage or Autotask PSA or ConnectWise Sell, which is a quoting tool, ConnectWise has acquired YSync. Actually, a good friend of mine, Paul, who started the company out of Australia. So congratulations, Paul and team. Very excited for you. Congratulations. But effectively, ConnectWise, scoops up another vendor here. And then they've done, many acquisitions over the year. But basically, here are, all of the integrations, right? Cloud Radio, Desk Director, and Varasoft, etc. It's cool.
I wonder if this one overlaps with QuoteWorks then.
I think they integrate with QuoteWorks, right? So they're not actually a quoting tool, they're a payment automation gateway.
Okay.
So like if you send your QuoteWork proposal, right? And you go to their webpage and then you go to hit pay, accept, it can go to WisePay to actually accept payment. And then what they do is they go back and they actually, go into your system and mark that as paid, and then it syncs back to your accounting system. It's actually a cool application.
Yeah.
So YSync and WisePay. So this was literally, I think there's an event happening right now in Australia. It's IT Nation Connect APAC, or I just call it IT Nation Australia. But they're down there right now. They're having that regional conference. They announced this.
Very cool.
And congratulations to them.
Yeah.
Here's another one that came out. I thought this was.
I saw that last night.
I'm not trying to be political at all. Isn't it just weird that they just announced this law saying that California, I think Virginia, want to go completely no new gas power cars can be sold after like 2035 or something.
Yeah,
so
and Scotland's already got that on the books as well. Scotland's going by 2025 or 2030, I think.
So then, but their power grid, they're basically telling people, hey, we don't have enough juice. Can you like not plug your car in? It's like, do you tell people not to go to the gas station and fill up too? I'm missing something.
No, they're just saying between 4 and 8 p.m. to not charge your car.
Okay. It just seems
I know,
weird
it is.
to me. Are we pushing people to a mode of transportation that the system can't accommodate? I mean,
yeah. Well, who knows? I don't know if they have enough charging stations in rural areas. I mean, the cities, it's fine in parking lots, but again, I know I was in Scotland in June, and some of my friends there were talking about the rollout, and it's great in the cities where where there's the grid, but Scotland has a lot of country roads and mountains, and what do you do if you're up in the hills and you run short and it's 100 miles to your next charging spot? And
I don't know, for all you Tesla guys out there, and
tell us how you're dealing with that.
Yeah, I would be curious to see what you think about this one. I know hybrid, obviously, at least you have both options, but I digress. So how about this one? Around the same thing. Batteries made from crab shells could power your future car. You believe that?
Oh, no, but I'll help contribute. I love Dungeness crab. I'll eat crab all the help charge my cars.
I saw this. I was like, really? Like, forget cobalt and all the other stuff that they
There's
need in order to
some
make.
particular chemical in there or some
Yeah,
compound
for
that the
example,
shell.
probably cars widely used in lithium-ion batteries. Takes hundreds or thousands of years to degrade and add to the environment. So basically, there's some sort of electrolyte found in crab shells. So like whatever you throw away after you eat your dinner, right? They want to use that to make batteries. Hey, it sounds good to me if they can make it work, but you remember back in the day where, I mean, I had multiple Volkswagen diesel, Jetta diesels for Dieselgate, by the way. And people used to, like, if they, I guess they had a lot of time. People used to go and like connect, get all the old French fry oil from all the places around you, and then they would like, make their own diesel, right? Biodiesel. And I was like, man, you drive and it smells like French fries. You know what I mean? Like, I hope that you're driving and it doesn't smell like crap. Just saying.
Yeah,
could be.
If it's in the battery, maybe it's in the battery and it's encased. So you're probably okay on that one.
Okay. All right. Well, we're moving right along. This one, did you know you can sue spammers? This guy got $1,200 without a lawyer. How to fight back against unwanted texts and calls.
Oh, I think that's one worth noticing.
So I guess I didn't read the whole article here, but basically he sued this guy, I guess in small claims court, and they settled with him. And he got a $1,200 check for somebody that was calling over and over again.
Yeah, I've got one that calls. The president haven't called during the call. They usually between 9 and 10 o'clock my time. They dial my old house line, and I'll have to.
I guess he must have found a company that was domestic. Because,
well, that's the hard part, is who's behind the call.
Yeah, if you're somebody's calling you from, like, I don't know, China or some other country, like, I don't know how you're going to do that, but apparently it's the law, federal law. Seem to be popping up all over the place, these little federal laws, but prohibits unsolicited calls made to cell phones using automatic telephone dialing systems or artificial pre-recorded robodials. So obviously this must have come out after all the, hey, your used car warranty is up for renewal.
Yeah, maybe that's why I haven't got so many of those calls lately.
Yeah. So obligated to pay $500 per violation or $1,500 each time they willingly or knowingly violate the act. Okay. All right.
Good
there
to
you
know.
go. So you can just take these people to court and just use this federal law, and you might get this guy got a $1,200 check. I mean, that's not bad. You can catch him.
Yeah.
How many phone calls?
Too bad they blocked out the company name so that we can't use it and all go after the same one.
Yeah, we could just like get a bulk deal, right?
Yeah.
I thought this was intriguing, right? With everybody going to cloud. This article from InfoWorld was like, hey, here's 3 reasons why cloud computing doesn't save you money. I'm sure this guy's getting a lot of clicks.
Yeah.
Here you go. First, there's little or no monitoring. See that, Frank? Little or no monitoring. Why?
And
then it says there's no discipline or accountability. Well, I'm sure all the auto scaling starts to rack up. You don't even know what you're getting billed until the bill shows up, and then you're bald like me and you, Frank.
Yeah.
And then third, businesses can't or won't optimize cloud resources. Basically, they're running dirty.
Yeah.
Like my old diesel Jetta used to, apparently.
Yeah.
So,
interesting. I've heard from, as you were sort of saying, the bills that come with surprises, or the bills that, you decide you want to downscale, or you don't need the, what you signed up for, or, you want to switch the data. I mean, just the charges that come from, the other sort of the ancillary charges, if you will, or the, transfer charges of data or services. And that's an interesting play. I kind of always had been sort of seeing or hearing a little bit more of folks sort of, there was all on-prem. Oh, there's this great cloud, and people kind of started with, kind of a hybrid on-prem and then and cloud. And then a lot of people have gone fully to the cloud. I've actually kind of heard a bit of the kind of coming back to on-prem for certain functions, right? Again, some of these costs that yeah. some elements.
There is a point where, like, I love when you actually can get somebody from Amazon or Google or even Microsoft on the line, distribution, whatever. And you're like, hey, when do I get a discount? And then the response is, well, hey, when you're like big like Netflix, let us know.
Yeah.
And it's like, but there is a diminishing returns point, right? Because if you get to a certain size bulk of amount of data in one of these public cloud providers, it does go the other way.
Yeah. Yeah, but getting there but again, I think there's some value, and I don't know where the point is, but I just heard a bit more of companies sort of pulling back a little bit off their cloud commitment, if you will, and putting a little bit more on-prem. And maybe it's a storage, maybe it's a little bit more compute power centrally in the database play, and then other pieces out there. So cloud's clearly not going away, but I think there is some efficiency models that need to be continued to be developed, but that way.
100%. So speaking about cloud, earlier in the week on Tuesday's call, we talked about, hey, is Microsoft finally listening and making changes to for the better? And then you hear Amazon and Google slam Microsoft's most recent computing changes. So apparently, as the story unfolds a little bit more, Microsoft made all these licensing changes,
right,
apparently because the EU kind of pushed back, right? Like apparently they were antitrust. This happens from time to time for many different reasons. And basically, Amazon and Google said that Microsoft is now doubling down on the same harmful practices by implementing even more restrictions in an unfair attempt to limit competition. Rather than listening to its customers and restoring fair software licensing in the cloud for everyone. So in a nutshell, he says, promise of cloud is flexible, elastic computing without contractual lock-ins. Customers should be able to freely move across platforms and choose their technology that works best for them rather than what works best for Microsoft. I mean, I can't really argue with that sentence, actually.
No, but it's also, I don't know the space that well, but it may be also the kettle calling, what is the phrase? The kettle calling the kettle, pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah. So it says Amazon, Google, Alibaba, Microsoft's own cloud services will be excluded from deals. Microsoft move came after smaller European Union competitors took their grievances and its cloud service practiced the EU antitrust. So in a nutshell, this change is taking place in October 1st. Microsoft says it will make it easier for cloud providers to become, for cloud providers to compete. And then you go down here and it says, no, actually, they think it's the reverse. It's actually making it harder to do business based on how Microsoft's licensing thing. So I guess if you go to Azure, you get certain things that are just baked into the Azure subscription. If you're trying to take Microsoft products and park them in other clouds, right?
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. Interesting. We heard from Nick Heddy from PAX 8, apparently at Exchange in Denver, that all these changes were coming for the better in October to help Microsoft partners, kind of unreal from NCE, which was indefinitely on hold, by the way, for legacy subscribers, which was interesting, but we'll see. We will see. This next one.
I was just going to ask if there's anything happening in the VoIP world that's relevant, but go ahead on this.
The VoIP world is a constantly moving target, but we'll come back to that on another day. This one was interesting. Said the nation's fastest community-wide internet 25 gig service launches as $1,500 per month. I'm not sure. I mean, a business might pay for it. That sounds cool, but I don't know if somebody working at home is going to pay for $1,500 a month internet.
No. Would they ever? $1,500 a month. Holy mackerel!
Here you go. 25 gig, 1,500.
Who would need that speed at their home?
That's a good question. I mean, I would argue, I'm thinking about it, if I just got 25 Verizon Fios accounts at 1 gig, would I be paying more or less than 1,500? Probably more. I'll admit that. But again, this has to definitely be a business service, right?
Yeah.
You're starting to see this, by the way. There's Google Fiber and Comcast and everybody else. These municipalities are starting to become their own internet providers.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense for them, right?
Trying democratize the internet.
Yeah.
Man, $1,000 per month for residents. I don't see anybody doing that.
No. I mean, unless you're running 5 businesses out of your residence and they each need, you got a lot of demand. You're running your own little data center in there.
Yeah, 25. I think 1 gig's good. Like that's good. And like as they bring the price down, but 25 gigs. And this fiber, they can just like turn the screws and all of a sudden, and more juice is available. So I digress. Last one I had for everyone. I think it's for an apartment community. Maybe you're right. I didn't read it all the way. Well, so if the apartment community splits the 1,500 and everybody just pays their little piece, that would make sense. I'm down for that, because then your bill could be like $20 a month.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody's got
until everybody's playing Xbox at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the last one I had, because we mentioned SpaceX earlier because they did a deal with T-Mobile, for coverage, right? So now if you're on T-Mobile and you have a new enough phone, you can piggyback off the SpaceX coverage in gaps where T-Mobile isn't strong. So now Royal Caribbean's the next company to go to SpaceX and say, hey, we're going to use you as our provider, right? So looks like they're starting to get a little sticky, right? And like we always complain about planes, right? And how slow internet on planes was for the longest time.
Yeah.
This may change the game, guys. So not that I've been on a cruise recently, and I don't know who has, but definitely need internet.
Yeah.
No question, right? So
vacation, it used to be a vacation to get away, and that's harder and harder to do. And sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing.
Yeah, 100%. So some real interesting news out there. So, listen, technology is always changing, right? Hopefully for the better, but as you see, every time something good comes out, somebody can abuse it too. So
absolutely,
you just got to be a little bit careful, but that just comes back to, following the industry and staying a little bit ahead of things so that you don't wait until the shoe drops. And you mentioned, Frank, earlier in the call that, you're running in the MSPs that really haven't adopted a security direction yet, if that's the right phrasing.
We tend to call it a little bit more of a cyber hygiene program, right? If they're starting from kind of nowhere, if you will, but sort of both internally and to their customers, the hygiene is kind of the place to start, right? Thinking from that perspective, a little bit more people more used to that.
No, I really think that it's important that people continue to understand what's going on out there, and ultimately make sure that they have their ducks in a row, right? I mean, either you're going to wait for a bad thing to happen, you're going to wait for your customer to come and call you instead of you calling them. You're going to wait for the insurance premium to be so outrageous that you got to do something different about it. It's going to be like, or maybe there's a fourth or fifth option. You're going to be forced to do it. So,
speaking on insurance, right? There are a couple other data stream insurance in particular is one sort of very MSP focused enabler for insurance policies to MSPs and their customers. We're working with them on some integration plays as well, but they've got a specific MSP program if people are wanting to kind of take a look. And again, the insurance industry is so licensed and sort of regulated that you can't start offering policies yourself, but you can more easily get access to tools and make some potential money on referrals from it. Actually, I think they even have a specific term that they use. Because they can't say commissions or I don't know. There's one of those things.
I don't think making money on referrals is something that's not a good idea. I think, but I've heard good things about data stream, but I think there are very strict regulations about
exactly.
that.
Yeah. So welcome back, Darren. By the way,
I've been back. It just
I was listening to my recent events news.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you, Frank, for coming on, guys. Thanks for tuning in. And, again, we're getting closer and closer to some of these big events coming up here. And
see you in DC.
So good to see you definitely in DC, Frank and Darren. We'll see Darren too. So we'll talk a little more shop there. I'm pumped. I can't wait. I'm going to wear maybe my Phillies gear just because, I can't wait.
Who are they playing that night, by the way? Do you know?
Actually, Washington's away while we're at DattoCon. So that's why we're able to rent the stadium.
Oh, okay. I thought there was actual game on.
No, I'm happy that it wasn't a game, or else we'd have to find somewhere else to do it. But very, very excited for this, guys. This session was recorded. We're going to post it online at mspinitiative.com under sessions. Please come back Tuesdays and Thursdays, 1 o'clock Eastern time. Hope to see you out on the road, face to face, and not behind the screen. Frank, see you there, my friend.
See you soon.
Take care. Take it easy, everyone.